we define our life by the big moments. But most of our life consists of ordinary chapters. The book of Ruth reminds us how God is involved in the day-to-day hardships in our life.
Hey, welcome back, man. Last week we got in our time machines and we went back to April of 2020 where we would meet online all the time out of necessity. But man, there's nothing like meeting here together. I love that we live in a world where we're able to take those precautions and do some things when we need to. But even though God is going to meet you where you are all the time, those moments of having, like in worship, and those times that we get to gather together and to praise Him is just so much more meaningful and impactful to me, I think, to each one of us. So it's great to be back here again this week. I've been sick all week long, so if I'm like coughing up and dying up here today, just bear with me. There is some good messages we continue on this week in the book of Ruth, and we'll make it through this together today. But today, as we continue on in our look at this book of Ruth, we're going to watch as Boaz and Ruth start to get to kind of know each other a little bit. They start to date, and they date in a way that will honor God in their relationship, but also is going to honor God in their marriage that is to come. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about dating. We're going to talk a little bit about marriage. We're going to talk about both those things. And I kind of want to start off talking about dating. How many of you would agree with me that dating can be very awkward? I mean, even if you're not dating right now, you can probably remember that whenever you would have to date, it would be really kind of weird and awkward. It's kind of like going to a job interview, going on a date, right? You're like, I don't know what to wear, and I don't know what to say. And then, like, when you get to the end of the date, how do you end it? Like, how do you end the date? Should it be a handshake? Should it be like a fist bump? Should it be like a Christian side hug? Should y'all be like swapping spit or whatever? That's not the answer. Don't do that whenever you go out on a first date. But, back when I was younger and I had to date, it was really hard to date because it was a whole different thing. Like, first of all, you had to speak, like verbally speak to the other person to get to know them. To start off, you had to get the person's phone number, so you had to get the courage to ask them for their phone number, or maybe you had a friend that had the phone number, and then you would have to come up with things to say while you were on the phone with each other. And nowadays, it's a little bit easier because you can, meet online. And it's a good tool to be able to use to meet online. I know a lot of great people that I've met throughout life that when you ask them, like, how'd you guys meet? And they're like, oh, we met online. It's kind of cliche-ish, whatever. But I think it's okay to use that. But we have to kind of be careful at how we utilize some of these things as we're dating, because people, whenever we're like using these online tools to find them for relationships, they can begin to kind of become a commodity. My daughter right now, she's shopping for a house. And the way she does that is she goes on Zillow or Realtor.com or whatever. I don't know which site she uses, but you guys get what I'm saying. And she says, I want a house that's got 2 bedrooms, and if it has 1, it's no good. So I'm going to filter that out. And I want to make sure that it has a yard, and it needs to be this many square feet, and it needs to be in this neighborhood or in this place or geographically here. And that's fine, but that's a house that we're shopping for in that situation. We can start to treat finding the right one like shopping for a house. We're like, well, I want him to look like this, and I want him to have this much money, and I want him to have this kind of job, and I want him to be, going to this school or whatever it is. And when you think about it that way, shopping for people online like a commodity is a little bit degrading overall. I mean, I agree that it's wise to know what you want in another person, and it's wise to know what you're seeking in somebody else. But also, when you're developing a relationship, it's not always all about what you want. So to bring you up to speed in our story here in Ruth, we're looking at this Moabite woman. And she left Moab to go to Bethlehem, and as she was doing that, she got completely transformed in this process, and she started worshiping the God of Israel. And through this, as we watched Ruth in this transformation, she went back to Bethlehem, and she met this guy named Boaz, and so this Moabite woman begins to get to know this guy named Boaz. If you were online with us last week, then we talked about this guy named Boaz. His name means strong. He was well put together. It says that he was a man of standing. He was a man of integrity, this Boaz was. And so today, as we continue on with the story, we're going to watch them begin to get to know each other. And we're going to see these principles that are going to help us about not only dating wisely, but also strengthening our future marriages and strengthening our current marriages if we're married today. This big idea for today is this idea that we're shopping for what we want. We're out shopping for the right person. We're out shopping for the right relationship. Or we have this idea of what it should be. But I would suggest that instead of looking for what you want to get from somebody else, I would advise that you need to look at what you're willing to give somebody else. That's what you can affect. And this is important because you don't just attract what you want, but you tend to attract who you are. We're going to see this play out today in the book of Ruth. And we're going to look at these 4 signs that as we're out looking for the right person, or as we feel like we might have found the right person, these are the 4 big characteristics that we should look for and strive for in these relationships. You see, Boaz is out there checking out Ruth, and Ruth is out there checking out Boaz. And here's the things that we're going to see in this story today. We see that they're seeking character. They're looking for character in one another, and that they're exploring connection. We see that they're showing consideration, and they're receiving confirmation. I hope you see that today. All of them receive. The message is always more anointed whenever the pastor makes sure that everything starts with the same letter, So we've got seeking character, exploring connection, showing consideration, and receiving confirmation. We're going to talk about each one of these as we break them down today. So Boaz is this landowner. He's this lover of God. He's this great leader. He's a good man, and he's also very generous and faithful to Ruth in this process. And she's a little bit taken back by this. She's like, man, why are you being so nice to me, Boaz? What is this? We see in Ruth chapter 2, verse 10, she says, at this, she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, well, why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me? A foreigner nonetheless. You can almost see she might be a little insecure in this situation, but what I love about the story right here is there's no mention of her physical appearance. Boaz isn't focused on what's on the outside of her, but he's looking at what's inside. And we'll see that the first thing that he does is he highlights her as a person because he's seeking character. He's seeking character in a person. And watch how he replies to her. Ruth's like, why me? And then in verse 11, Boaz says, well, I've been told all about what you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and come to live with people that you didn't even know before. What he's saying is I heard you stopped worshiping this false god, Chemos. I heard that you began to worship the God of Israel. You left Moab. You left your people. You turned to the one true God. Unlike your other sister-in-law, that you decided not to turn back. Oprah went back home to her people, but you decided not to do that. And I can see that you're not playing the victim card. You're not just sitting there saying, woe is me, I'm a widow, my husband's died, I'm in a new land. But you show up early in the fields to glean. You come out here to glean every single day. And you didn't do what most women did. Most women at the time, they would sell their bodies because they needed to make ends meet if they became widowed. Boaz sees this in her, and he sees this godly character about her. And I would ask you to ask yourself this very, very serious question. Are you a person of character? Are you a person of godly, spiritual character? Are you truly a disciple of Jesus? Why does this even matter? It matters because you don't build a life of righteousness on a foundation of sin. If you want a godly marriage, then it's wise to seek God first. Are you a person of spiritual character? What does this even mean to be a person of spiritual character? It means, are you seeking God? Are you seeking his word? Are you regularly reading the Bible, and not only just reading it to read it, but to understand it better and to study it and allowing it to change your life? Are you a person that just goes to church or just watches church online or whatever? Or are you really connected in the local church? And you're serving and you're part of it, and ain't nothing going to keep you away from meeting with your people as often as you can. How do you live your life? Do you treat other people with honor and with respect? Are you being transformed in the image of Christ? Doesn't mean that you're perfect, but you're constantly coming more perfection because of Christ's perfection in your life. Are you a person of character? Because if you want to have a godly marriage, then you need to have a godly character. And if you're not married yet and you're still out there and you're trying to figure it out, and I know we've got some people in here, some younger kids that are just starting to get to that point in their life, here's some good advice that I would have for you whenever you begin to date people. First of all, what are their friends like? Who do they hang out with? Because we tend to hang out with the people that we are. Secondly, how do they speak about their family? Do they speak about their family with respect and honor? Or are they constantly degrading the other members in their family? How do they treat people out in public? How do they treat people that are serving them in restaurants? I heard this quote one time. I don't remember who said it, but it says, when a person shows you who they really are, we should believe them. Sometimes people show us who they are, and we tend to say, oh, that's not. Oh, this is what. That's who they really are. The way that people are living their life is a reflection of what they value and what they believe. Because what we believe determines how we behave. Let's be people of godly character and seek other people in our life of godly character as well. Next thing that we see with Ruth and Boaz is they begin to explore connection. They explore this connection with each other. What they don't do is Boaz doesn't say, hey, Ruth, why don't you come over and watch Netflix and chill, baby? No, they begin to develop this relationship. He invites her on a date. And he says, hey, man, let's go out and let's go to lunch together. And in verse 14, he says, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here and have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar. And when she sat down with all the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain, and she ate all that she wanted to, and she had some left over. Now, we don't really know what she ate. It says she ate all she wanted to. It could have been that first date kind of thing where she was just like, I just have a salad, that's all, Like, I don't know. And maybe she did eat all she wanted to and had some left over. It doesn't really tell us. But I did notice what she didn't do on this first date. She didn't move too fast. She wasn't like, hey, thanks for the salad. What do you think about getting married? Hey, thanks for the salad. What should we name our children? They're taking it slow. It's like, that's what they're on this first date. Notice what they're not doing. They're not making out. They're not fooling around. they're just getting to know each other, and they're just beginning to make a connection. You want somebody in your life that is going to pursue you. Not just pursue your body, but pursue you and want to get to know you and make a connection with you. My eyes are up here, guys, really get to know you. And Ruth and Boaz, they're pursuing each other, and they're making this connection along the way. Next thing we're going to see in here is that they begin to show consideration. We continue on into verse 15. It says, as she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, says, let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for the bundles and kind of leave them there for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her. So what do we know here about this? According to the Levitical law, that they were required to leave the parts behind that they dropped as they were harvesting, and they needed to leave those for the people, the widows and the outcasts, to come behind and be able to pick up, be an opportunity for them to be able to make amends for themselves. And what Boaz is doing right here is he's allowing Ruth to guard her dignity. He's allowing her to go out there and work, but he's making sure that she's still provided for very, very well. She came to work, so obviously she doesn't want a handout, and Boaz can respect that, but he's telling his guys, man, just make it a little bit easy on her. Help her out a little bit. Drop a little bit extra behind you. He's going out of his way to bless her, and he's not just doing what the law requires, but he's doing so much more for Ruth here. Verse 17, we read this. It said, so Ruth gleaned in the field until evening, and then she threshed the barley that she had gathered, and it amounted to about an ephah. What's an ephah? Tell you what an ephah is, actually. An ephah is a whole lot of barley, is what it is. So an ephah actually is about 2 weeks' worth of wages. You would look at the salary that you would make in 2 weeks, that would be an ephah. And here's Ruth out here working for 1 day. She makes enough for 2 weeks' worth of time, 2 weeks' worth of work. See, Boaz blesses her more than she ever would have expected. And I would encourage you, if you're out there dating, man, don't settle for whoever's there. Don't just settle for the first person that comes along. We don't need to find somebody that just barely meets your expectations. You should be finding somebody that's going to exceed your expectations that you have. Guys, if you want a Ruth, then you need to be a Boaz. You need to be a giver. You need to be generous. You need to put some effort into it. You don't just attract what you want. You would tend to attract who you are. So he's seeking character, and they're looking for a connection. And then there's this consideration for each other, and that finally leads to this part that I love about their relationship beginning to come together, is they begin to receive confirmation. So Ruth, she comes home to her mother-in-law. She's got this ephah of barley here, this mother load of grain, and Naomi looks at it, and she's like, Naomi, man, look what I got. And then in verse 19, it says, her mother-in-law asked her, man, where'd you go glean today? Where'd you work? Blessed is the man who took notice of you. Naomi saying, man, I don't know who this guy is, but I like him. I like him a lot. He was very, very helpful. And remember, like what Naomi thought about Ruth. She loved Ruth. She prayed, remember back in chapter 1, she prayed on the side of the road, may God bring you a great godly man in your life. She prayed that this would happen to her. And here's this person that that Ruth loves. Ruth absolutely adores her. And so Naomi, who Ruth loves, is giving this blessing of this new guy, this new guy, Boaz, and saying, man, this is confirmation that this is somebody, a candidate that you might be able to trust. And that's why it's always a good sign when those you love the most like who you like. And this is important to realize. When those people that you love the most, those people that you trust, those people that you allow into your life, when they say, man, I see potential in that person, or I see where this person is going to be a really good person for you. When those people that you love the most confirm this is a good thing for your life and your relationships. I'll tell you, if you're gonna date somebody in my family, then there's going to be some point where you're gonna have to meet Chris and myself, and obviously the whole family. And you know, I really like the kids that my kids are dating right now. Who knows what will happen? They're all young still, but you know, whatever will happen will happen. But I really like them, and one of the reasons I like them is because There's a certain fear and respect that they have for Chris and myself, and even some of you guys that they've developed relationships with as well too. You know, Perry and Danny and Erica and Josh. So you know, like you guys out there, like they'll seek advice and they care what you think about them. Not just my kids, but I mean their girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. I think that's important to have that certain level or amount of respect. I don't know, maybe I just think about it this way. It's like if you love who I love, and I don't just mean that to be my kids or whoever they're dating. I mean like the people I love, the people of this church, you guys. If you can love who I love, then I might be able to respect you and trust you to love my child. But if you can't, then I don't really know. It's always a good sign when the people that you like the most, love the most, and respect the most, like those people that you like. But when they don't like somebody, I would strongly encourage you to listen. Your mama don't like them, your daddy don't like them, your brother don't like them, your best friend don't like them, your dog snarls at them when they come in the house, you know. But I can change them, I can make them different, I can make them a better man. I would just listen to those people that you love and you trust in these situations. Because if everybody else doesn't trust them, man, you should just be real careful. So what do we see in this story? We see Naomi likes him. There's some confirmation that she had, and Ruth shows up to this first date, and she's probably all sweaty and smells like funk, you know, like she's been out gleaning all day out in the sun and getting all nasty, but Boaz, none of that bothers Boaz at all, because he's not looking at what's on the outside of her. He's looking at the inside. He sees this character within her, and he likes what he sees, and so he wants to get to know her, and he likes who he begins to get to know. And they begin to show consideration for each other. And as they do that, then there's this confirmation from outside people about this relationship that they're starting out on. So what if you're on the dating scene right now and these aren't qualities that you're finding in your relationship? Or what if dating is way past you and you're married and you're like, these aren't things that I have in my marriage. My marriage really isn't where it should or could be right now. I kind of thought it'd be in a different place. I want to end today with this scripture that was our last one that we want to read, and kind of use this to help us in the story begin to answer the question of, well, what if I'm there? What if I find myself in that place? We're going to kind of pick up in this same place next week. But Naomi asked Ruth, she said, who's the guy that did this? And Ruth says, well, his name's Boaz. And she's like, Boaz? He's a relative of ours. I know that dude. And Ruth 2:20, she said, he is one of our guardian redeemers. What is a guardian redeemer? What does that mean? Guardian redeemer is one of the big themes in this book of Ruth that we'll read, and this is kind of a metaphor. This idea of a guardian redeemer. But what a guardian redeemer is a person that assumes the role of providing for somebody in a situation such as like a widow. A member of the family passes away, their husband passes away, there's a significant loss. This means that they're not able to provide for themselves anymore, so somebody assumes this role of the guardian redeemer. Their role is to protect her and to provide for her and to honor her and to take care of her. But in this story, Boaz is not legally obligated to be this guardian redeemer for Naomi. There were a lot of people that were much closer to her in their relationship. And he sure was not required by law to be a guardian redeemer from some Moabite that came over here to this country. He doesn't owe Ruth anything. But yet he chooses to give her absolutely everything. It's not about the law. It's about grace. In the New Testament, we have a guardian redeemer that came for us in Jesus Christ. The living Son of God came to protect us, to provide for us. He paid the debt for us in the forgiveness of our sins. He meets all of our needs, and he works through all things. Works through all things in our life. Through the broken relationship that you're in, through the hurting marriage that you might be in, he's still working in all things. He's the one that when you call on him and when you seek him, you'll find him. Do you love him? Are you his disciple? He takes what is broken and he makes things new. Therefore, if anybody is within Christ, the old creation is gone and a new one is born. It doesn't matter how jacked up your dating relationship is, and it doesn't matter how screwed up your marriage is. When you call on him, when both of you call on him together, he can redeem and he can renew anything. There is no relationship that is beyond God's healing. There's no situation that's beyond God's grace. When two people decide that they are going to seek one God. You can blame the other person and say it's their fault. What I would encourage you to do is to do what you can do and allow God to do what only he can do. Lord, I come to you today as we read this beautiful story about this beautiful couple as they begin to kind of start their relationship. And Lord, I just ask that we can look at the story and say, how does this affect me? How does this speak to me? What part of this am I here to listen to today, Lord? Maybe it is that you have been trying to date people and you're looking all the wrong directions and you're just trying to settle for what it is. I just need someone. Instead of I just need the right one. Or maybe we're married and we're like, man, my marriage isn't quite what I thought it should be. But am I doing all the things that I need to do? Or am I doing what I should be doing to have a godly marriage? Am I seeking you first? in my marriage. But I pray for each one of us that are gathered here today, that as whatever part of this story today was our moment of vision with you, that we could carry that throughout these walls, that we could share that with somebody else, that we could have that opportunity to work through that within our own guidance. That we would really look at how we can utilize these pieces to change our character, to become more like you, to be constantly seeking that perfection that you have shown us. God, I love you. And I pray this in your name today. Amen.